Royal Standley of Oregon Pacific Financial Advisors, offering securities through United Planners Financial Services member FINRA SIPC, guides clients with empathy in discovering and reaching their financial goals, and creates financial plans for clients so they can live their life by design. In these episodes, he relates his expert financial insights and discusses timely topics. Royal strives for excellence and has a passion for sharing his knowledge and supporting his community. Now, on to the show.
Hello and welcome to Life by Design with Royal Standley of Oregon Pacific Financial Advisors. Royal, I hear you've got some big news today.
I do. I don't know if some of our listeners have heard this or not, but we had a new report come out from the government here recently, and surprise, surprise, Social Security is still running out of money.
It's like 10 years running, 20 years running.
I know. This has been the longest period of time where we have ever kicked a can down the road. Yeah. And I'm sure nothing will change this year. So I thought we would just take some time, go back over Social Security and talk a little bit about it. I've gotten a few different questions here recently on, what happens, can we still rely on Social Security? Is it still part of the financial planning process? So I thought it would be good to kind of touch up base on that and spend a little time going back over the program that is Social Security.
Okay. So I remember the last time we spoke about this, I think you had a couple dates that you had woven into the conversation. Like there were some dates that were, hey, when this year hits, that's when Congress has better have some decisions that have been made or something's going to have to be revamped or whatever. Is that part of this report? Are there still some hard and fast dates that we need to be aware of?
Yeah, and the real date that we're looking at is there's a Social Security trust fund that is the money that's set aside for Social Security benefits down the road. Mm-hmm. And the date that is always in the headlines is, when does that money run out? And what happens when there is no more money, there is no more principal in that Social Security trust fund?
Mm-hmm. So do we know that date?
Yes. So the interesting thing here is we just went through a pandemic. And so how big of an effect did that have on Social Security? So right now we did see the estimated exhaustion date, which had been 2035. So, 14 years mm-hmm. from now, dropped a year to 2034.
Oh, geez.
So
okay.
Basically, that trust fund, the projection is that will be drained by 2034.
Yeah, so that's no bueno.
And I can kind of tell in your voice you sound a little bummed out about this.
Well, I don't know. I mean, that's a whole 13 years away. Who cares? I'm kidding. That's totally kidding. I think everybody cares, right? And I know that there's a huge issue because everybody's talking about how many baby boomers are retiring per day. I know that COVID, and I'd heard probably a flippant remark from somebody that because of COVID, because of has been a large loss of life, and a lot of those people are in the stage of gathering Social Security that they didn't know if it would actually be affected by the COVID timeline. But obviously it has. A lot of people are out of the workforce, which, that's a lot of money that's not going into Social Security. So all of it contributes to it, and and none of it's really good. So is there anything in the report that is positive, Royal? Anything at this point?
Well, the positive thing is Medicare is slightly better than Social Security. So that's a positive. That has a little bit more funding time built in there. So that is a good thing. But really, I just wanted to kind of take today and just chat about, what Social Security is, what it isn't, and kind of what the best guess is on what's going to happen should Congress not be able to come together and come up with a viable solution in the next 13 years, which, if we're taking odds in Vegas, is probably going to be a pretty high number there. If you're going to throw down some money, Congress coming together to fix something, probably unlikely.
Yeah. From what we've seen this last few years, that's the one thing I'm not betting on for sure. So, all right. And I know that you talk to clients all the time. I'm sure that Social Security is an integral part of their overall plan, but not something that they're necessarily basing their retirement on, I would hope, right? I mean, that's the message I've gotten from you ever since beginning to work with you with this podcast is that Social Security shouldn't be your only option for sure. Let's make sure that you have a better view of what the future holds. So where do we start with this?
Yeah, so let's just start at the beginning when you got your first job, you got your paycheck, and you thought you were going to get a whole lot more money than what was actually in your paycheck.
Yep.
So the way Social Security is funded is through payroll deductions. Basically, when you get paid through a W-2 job, or if you're self-employed, this is self-employment tax. Social Security is taking a portion of that. It's about 6.2% for the employee, and then the employer puts in 6.2% as well and kind of matches that together. That's what's going into that Social Security Trust Fund to fund future distributions. Now, there is some income limits there where basically you're no longer paying into Social Security. So in 2021, the Social Security taxable wage base, which is basically where you stop paying into Social Security, comes in at $142,800 per individual taxpayer. So if you're making above that $142,000 number, you're no longer paying into the Social Security system because at that point, there's no additional benefits that can be accrued for Social Security.
So you're only paying, you're still paying, but you're paying on that amount. Anything above that, you're not paying, correct?
Correct. So,
okay.
So that's what we kind of have to keep in mind there as we're planning for that. So the big thing there is people often wonder, well, how do they calculate what your benefit is going to be? You'll get your Social Security statement. Oftentimes now they're no longer sending out a hard copy version of the Social Security statement. Oftentimes you have to go to ssa.gov and set up an account, and you can download an updated Social Security statement. And we really recommend people do that from time to time. Number one, just to have a better awareness of what benefits they may be entitled to down the road. But also, if you look at that third page of the report, it lists what you made in all the preceding years from your income. Mm-hmm. And that number is important because sometimes, I know this is going to come as a shock to you, the government makes a mistake.
Oh,
and
really?
They might not give you credit for a year or for the proper amount in a year to calculate your Social Security benefit. So every couple of years, you probably just want to go back, look at that, and kind of compare that number with your W-2 or what you're reporting on your taxes for earned income for that year.
Got it. Yeah, and a side note on that, when you go to the site, make sure that you have all the documentation you could possibly have of different accounts that you've had throughout the years, because I've gone to the site and they ask you some pretty tough questions like, what credit card company what bank backed the credit card you had when you were 23 years old in a different state that you lived in? And so you kind of got to know what you've had in the past because they're trying to verify your identity. Once you're past that, you're good. But it's a little tough to get.
It is. So yeah, you definitely want to do this after you've had that first cup of coffee in the morning. You're fully awake and aware, yeah. And you can kind of remember what your mortgage payment was on the house that you first bought 20 years ago.
Yes, exactly.
Or who the bank was, who you financed your first car through. I've had those questions there. They can be a lot of fun. They can be a lot of fun to try to figure out there. Oftentimes, especially with married couples, it's good to have the spouse near because they can help answer some of those questions often.
I think you're talking right to my wife on that one. Make sure your wife's next to you, Eric, because you're not going to remember these things. The nice thing is they are multiple choice. So
they are. Yes.
We can take a guess at it.
But yeah, so going on there, getting your statement is something we recommend for everybody to make sure it's accurate and also just be aware of the benefits that you're going to be able to receive. Now, Social Security, you have to pay into Social Security for 40 quarters, or as they say, at 10 years, basically. So if you work continuously for 10 years, you've qualified for a retirement benefit from Social Security. You can also qualify for a benefit through your spouse's work as well. So if you're married for a period of time, you are eligible to pull Social Security off of your spouse's or your ex-spouse's Social Security benefit. So in general, if you're married for at least 2 years, you can pull your spouse's Social Security benefit and pull up to 50% of that. If you are an ex-spouse and were married at least 10 years, then you are also eligible to pull from your ex-spouse's Social Security.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of rules. I know that you've done a podcast on this before where you really dove in deep, so any listener should go back and listen to that. But I mean, there's a lot of little things that people just don't know, and they don't even know to ask those questions. So I'm glad you're bringing these back up. Yeah,
absolutely. It's something where you're probably only going to really think about claiming Social Security once or twice in your life. And then you once you make the decision with Social Security, you're kind of locked in. There's not a lot of room for making changes once you do put in those claim forms. So the big thing with Social Security is we want to integrate that with your financial plan. We want to make sure that Social Security is a piece of the plan, and we want to make sure that you are getting the most out of it over the long run, not just the highest dollar amount or the earliest dollar amount. With Social Security, you have the option of claiming it as early as age 60. For most people, they're going to, who are born after 1960, their full retirement age is 67. Full retirement age is simply the date that the government says is when you should work to. And if you claim earlier than that, earlier than full retirement age, there is some income restrictions on how much you can earn from working if you are still working in a business or at a or self-employed.
Got it. Yeah, and now looking at the possibility of it being adjusted, right? When that 2034 date comes, if it is adjusted, isn't it best for everybody to plan to wait as long as possible, Royal, so they can get more out of Social Security?
Oftentimes, yes. There is an argument to wait as long as possible. 67 for anybody born after 1960 is full retirement age, but if you continue deferring, you can actually defer Social Security up to age 70. And if you are of that age 67 cohort, you will get an increased benefit each year you defer Social Security past age 67. So really, if you defer Social Security until age 70, you're actually getting about 24% more income from Social Security because you did defer that.
That's huge.
Now, the real thing is the math for this is really easy to figure out of when you should claim Social Security. All you have to do is give me the month and the year that you're going to die.
Oh, okay.
And then we can figure it out. It's very simple from that standpoint.
I was so excited.
So if you want to do that right now, we can pencil this out.
Yeah, I was so excited because I'm like, hey, he's going to ask me. I'm in that 67-year-old group. I was born after 1960, so I got this. Now you want something totally different.
Right.
Got it. All right. Yeah.
So oftentimes that will come into some of those decisions of someone maybe has some health challenges. Maybe their family doesn't have a lot of longevity. So we do want to look at that and see if there is maybe a better option. Maybe it does make sense to claim earlier and maybe retire earlier. If we look at the numbers, about 2/3 of people collect Social Security earlier than their full retirement age. Only about 1/3 wait until that full retirement age or defer even past it to get an increased benefit. Really, I think the interesting question is why do people claim their Social Security as soon as they can?
I think it's more fun. I mean, it's money coming in, right? I mean, I think that people are tempted by that. I think it's human nature. If I've got this amount of money that could be delivered to me every month and I could get it right now, a lot of people just can't wait, right? I mean, we started with microwaves, and that was a pretty quick meal. Now it's even faster than that. Air fryers are fantastic, by the way. But it really is, we want it now. And so holding off, I think, is tough for a lot of people.
Correct. And really, I think once, especially as Americans, once we have something available to us, we want it. And there's a number of people who really don't have a choice. Maybe they've lost a job or are unable to work at their given profession and need to collect Social Security early, and they don't have an option to continue deferring. But for a lot of people, I think there's probably some wisdom in deferring past full retirement age, or at least until you reach full retirement age, especially if you're continuing to work.
Yeah, and can you verify something for me? I'm pretty sure I'm correct on this because I'm pretty sure I learned it from you already. But it's not just how many years you defer it. It increases every month you defer it. Is that correct?
That's correct. That is correct. So your beginning starting point goes up by a small percentage each and every month that you're deferring. So, let's just talk about that cost of collecting early. If your full retirement age is age 67, that is really considered 100% of your benefit. So if you retire right at 67, you're getting 100% of your benefit. Now, if we look back and say, well, what happens if you just claim Social Security at 62, just to get the earliest? You're actually taking a 30% reduction on your future income by doing that. So if you would have gotten $2,000 a month, if you would have waited until age 67, that now drops down to $1,400 a month because you took it at age 62. So that is going to go up every single month that you continue to defer. So if you can wait, there's always that benefit. And it goes up about 5 to 7% each year that you do keep deferring.
Yeah, no, that's great. And I know everybody's circumstances, it's all individual, but I know that's what you help your clients do. So what can people do to maybe stretch that out a little bit? With good planning, obviously that I think that would be your first answer. But when people are looking at this saying, I'd love to be able to postpone it 6-8 months. If I possibly could, I'll postpone it an entire year so I get an extra 8%. But what are some things that they can do to postpone and raise the amount that they're going to be getting from Social Security?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think the number one thing they can do is start planning early. If we can start getting someone's financial house in order, maybe get the house paid off, maybe have a lot of money set aside in, after-tax accounts or retirement accounts that maybe you will live off of those accounts for a few years and let that Social Security to defer. That can be extremely beneficial down the road. So there's a number of different things that can be done. It all comes down to the individual situation. And most importantly, how much time do we have to plan for that? Yeah.
Yeah, and I know it's very interesting because in our family, my mother-in-law and father-in-law are very in a different situation. Father-in-law worked for the government, so he did not put into Social Security. And my mother-in-law raised the kids, and she does have her 40 quarters, like you were talking about, her 10 years worth, but she was a substitute for a school. She did little jobs here and there. So she accumulated what she needed to draw Social Security, but it's a very small amount. And because it's such a small amount, when we did the math on it, there was really no reason not to take it earlier because the amount of money she was receiving, it wouldn't have made a huge difference if she had waited 3 or 4 years, to draw it over the lifetime of when she's going to take Social Security.
Yeah.
So it's all numbers game. And thank God I'm with you because you're the numbers guy.
Yeah. I think it really just comes down to knowing your situation and knowing what you have available to you. Yeah. And sometimes you might have a pension if you are a state or federal employee. That makes it really easy to defer Social Security out as long as possible. So this is just kind of part and parcel of what we do with our clients as we build out financial plans of helping them understand what their options are. The other thing I can't stress enough, and kind of actually, I'll be honest, my biggest fear is that we are completely and totally miscalculating future longevity.
That's a good point.
So right now, if you look at life expectancy for someone who has reached the age of 65, a healthy 65-year-old female has a 50% chance of living until age 89. So 24 years in retirement.
Yeah.
And that same woman has a 25% chance of living to 96. So those numbers have just continued to creep up. If we look at a couple age 65, so we're looking at two people at this point. One person in that couple has a 50% chance of living to 93. And one person in that couple has a 25% chance of living to 98.
Wow.
So my fear is that with all the medical advances we have seen and continue to see, what happens if instead of most people dying before the age of 100, in 20 years, what if most people are living to 105 or 110? Have we done the proper planning in place there? And did people make the right Social Security decision 30 years in the past to get the most out of that program?
Yeah, that's a really, really good point. And that kind of comes full circle with part of the report that you were talking about, that Medicare is, doing okay. But at the same time, now I think about that, advances in healthcare, I mean, that's a lot of healthcare that people are going to need to live that long. And it's not like the new advances are cheaper than the old ones.
That's right. That's right.
Man.
It would be nice if it was just, take more vitamin C and vitamin D and you're good.
Yes. There is that group out there. I don't know how well they're doing, but yeah, I'm sure there is a group out there that subscribes.
They're probably
to
doing pretty good. I mean,
probably,
they're
probably
hopefully
right
doing
now. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
But,
what else do we need to know? What else does the audience need to know specifically on this topic today, Royal?
Yeah, so let's just talk about this trust fund running out and what happens if Congress just doesn't do anything. So what will end up happening, and this is kind of our best guess and some of the guidance we've received from the Treasury and the Social Security Department, should this happen, is when that runs out, when they are estimating that they are going to be getting about 70 to 80% of the Social Security benefits they're paying out will still be coming in through payroll deductions. So we go back to that 6.2% that you're paying in as a W-2 employee plus the 6.2% your employer's putting in. So the estimate is that it's not that Social Security is going to stop working. Remember, they have to keep offering this as a future entitlement to continue taxing people's paychecks. So Social Security is not going to go away. It's just going to look a little bit different. So when we hit that crisis point where there's no more money in the trust fund and Congress, has decided not to do anything about it, at that point we're probably looking at a 20 to 30% reduction in Social Security benefits. So it's not the end of the world for someone who isn't relying 100% on Social Security, but it is definitely catastrophic for someone who's getting the vast majority of their income from Social Security and just getting by. So once again, coming back to the whole idea of we've got to start planning as early as possible to take care of some of these things that we have coming in the future. Longevity, the viability of keeping Social Security where it is, and all the other factors that are going to come up as we live in this brave new world we've created for ourselves.
Yeah. Quick question on that. Do you know if that is something that would hit every person who is currently taking Social Security, or did they say anything about it being from this point on, anybody who claims Social Security is going to have that reduction, or would they actually reduce everybody who is currently on it?
They would have to reduce everyone's current benefits.
Oh, man. Okay. That's worse than I thought. I mean, I laugh, but I can imagine all the people that would be used to that paycheck coming in and budgeting everything on that, the ones that are relying on that. Obviously, this is why planning is needed, and that's, we're going to give some contact information here in a minute, Royal, so people can reach out to you and talk to you about this so they can do something about it ahead of time. But there will be millions of people that are relying on a steady paycheck from Social Security at a certain amount budgeted for their circumstances, and to have that cut by 20 to 30%, I don't know any household in America, or at least among my friends at this point, that could take a quick 20 to 30% pay cut and be okay with that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah,
that's tough.
And if you've done the proper planning, then it's just an adjustment on what we're sending out from your investments to make up that difference and keep things as even keel as possible. The other thing, I don't want people leaving this podcast feeling like there is no hope. There's absolutely hope. There are viable fixes all along the way of things that we can do to fix Social Security. The people who have control over Social Security, plain and simple, is Congress. Talk to your congressman or woman, write a letter, really make sure that they're aware that this is an issue that needs to be addressed, and it's motivating people's choices of who they vote for.
Absolutely.
Because that's how we're going to get this to change. But from a kind of a personal standpoint and taking personal responsibility, the more planning we can do, the better off you're going to be. And if there isn't a cut to Social Security, well, then you're able to leave more to your family or charities of your choice and kind of benefit and improve the world. So I don't think there's a downside for each individual to kind of look at their own life, figure out how we're going to make that adjustment down the road, and put in the proper planning for the future.
Yeah, absolutely. So speaking of that, people need to do proper planning. They need to reach out to you. What's the best way to get a hold of you?
Yeah, visit my website at opfa.com, or you can just call our office at 541-772-1116.
All right. Royal, fantastic. I mean, it's an incredibly important issue. It's something that, again, you don't want ostrich syndrome, or you just stick your head in the sand and think, oh, it's all going to work itself out. We do have that personal responsibility, like you were saying, of taking the steps to secure our own future. And so I'm so appreciative of you putting out these educational podcasts to make the audience aware and making yourself available. So again, Royal, thank you so much.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
Absolutely. And our last thank you goes to you, the listening audience. This is why Royal does this. Thank you so much for tuning in and listening to the Life by Design podcast with Royal Standley. If you have not subscribed to the podcast yet, please click the subscribe now button below. This way, when Royal comes out with a new podcast, it'll show it directly on your listening device. This makes it much easier to share these podcasts with your friends and family. Again, thanks for listening today. For everyone at Oregon Pacific Financial Advisors, this is Eric Johnson reminding you to live your best day every day. And we'll see you next time.
Thank you for listening to the Life by Design podcast. Click the subscribe button below to be notified when new episodes become available. The views expressed are those of the presenter and may not reflect the views of United Planners Financial Services. Material discussed is meant to provide general information and is not meant to be construed as specific investment, tax, or legal advice. Individual needs vary and require consideration of your unique objectives and financial situation. Always seek the advice of your financial advisor or other qualified financial service provider with any questions you may have regarding your investment planning. Advisory services offered through Oregon Pacific Financial Advisors, Inc. Securities offered through United Planners Financial Services of America, member FINRA and SIPC. Oregon Pacific Financial Advisors, Inc. and United Planners Financial Services are independent companies.